Good morning, everyone. I am Leslie Anderson. I am here to welcome you to our Redevelopment Training Institute session. Just to confirm and to make sure we're all in the right place. This morning, we're talking about securing OZ funds for real estate development projects. We have an excellent panel here for you this morning. They're going to be introduced by our CEO, Mr. Daryl Godfrey. So, what I just want to do is thank you for being here this morning. I'm going to ask you to settle in, get ready to take notes. We always bring to you the best of the best to come in and share about what is happening in the OZ world. Now is the time to have this conversation. Planning is happening and going on as to where these OZ investments can go. Funds are looking for projects to invest in, and our panel this morning is going to give you some direction and insight into where you can go. So thank you for being here and enjoy the workshop. And over to you, Daryl Godfrey. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. As Ms. Leslie Anderson said, our CEO, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. We have done pre-pandemic a lot of work throughout the municipalities in New Jersey, trying to explain to them the great benefits of the OZ. But we are ecstatic to have Brad Molansky, the partner of Dwayne Morris, who brings an extensive amount of information on this subject matter. So without any further ado, Brad, you're on.
So it's a little scary now. I can see myself on the screen. It's very unnerving to me. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Sarah. Good to be with everybody. Sorry for the paperwork. I'm actually in the office today, which is a little bit different for me. You would have seen my home office with the same piles on transactions we're working on, but it kind of is what it is. What we're going to do is spend about the next, call it 40 minutes, talking about the program that has been in existence for about 3 years now. We're going to give kind of 101, 201 discussion. To the extent you have questions as we go, feel free to email in, I think, or we'll also have Q&A towards the end. We're then going to do a little bit of Q&A, and then we're going to jump to some real-life examples of transactions that are going on and people that are doing them, and get their bird's eye view of the good, the bad, and some of the ugly relative to OZs. So with that, I'm not sure who's moving the slides, VL, but why don't do you want me to move them, or are you going to move them? I guess you will move them. So again, the program, you can keep flipping as I go. There's no magic here. So as the program is relatively new, it was part of the Tax Act that was passed at the end of 2017 and became effective at the beginning of 2018. So the program has been in existence 18, 19, 20, and it'll be kind of 21 is 4 years. So relatively new for a program out of DC. Depending on who you talk to, the program has been very successful, or the program has not met its intended target. Again, that depends on who you talk to and depends on where you're talking to them in the country. Why do I say that? The history of the program, you can flip. The history of the program was from two senators, Senator Scott and Senator Booker from New Jersey, you most likely know. And their views were different. Senator Booker, a D, Senator Scott, an R. But they wanted to focus a program on how could they drive capital gains dollars into low, moderate income housing. That was the approach and the idea. How could we get capital to invest in trickier areas that hadn't seen investment in order to build low income housing? That was the goal. As the story gets told, Senator Scott was called to the White House. Again, I wasn't there, but this is on good advice. Senator Scott was called to the White House at the eve of the Tax Act being passed by the Trump administration, asked, hey, we understand you have this program. It's called the Opportunity Zone. We understand it's focused on affordable housing, but we'd like to include it in our bill, but we want to open it up to more things than just affordable housing. Meaning we could do anything else, office, residential, retail, hotel, in these opportunity zones, and then we could incent development in these areas. And so Senator Scott had about 37 seconds on whether to sort of say no or whether to take half a loaf. As the history goes, he took half a loaf. And the program that got passed and that's been in existence since 2018 allows for not only affordable housing, but also residential, retail, hotel, you name it, you can do it as long as you're not one of the 6 sin businesses, 6 as in the number 6. We'll talk about that in a bit. But these zones came into effect in 2018 based on HUD, Housing and Urban Development, census data from 2010. So HUD took the map of all low, moderate income areas in every state, sent that to the governors of all 50 states. Treasury said, governors, you have 3 months, January, February, March of 2018, to determine which zones in your state you can do up to 25% of them do you want to include. We don't care, federal government, if you put urban, rural, suburban, it's up to you. You decide which of these eligible zones you want. We're not going to change anything. So the governors looked at those maps that HUD sent out based on 2010 census data. They circled the areas that they thought were eligible that they wanted to use, both urban and suburban. Next slide. And they sent them back to the IRS Treasury, who looked at them and said, as they said they would, these are fine. They're per the maps that we sent you. These are the zones. And so those zones you will find in all 50 states are both suburban and urban, both rural and kind of in places one would think that are low income and in places that are up and coming and have been seeing development over the last couple of years, let alone during the pandemic. So as the slide indicates, there's about 8,762 of these zones. We have a bunch of them in New Jersey. You're likely familiar with where they are. But to the extent, you have clients or others that are interested, these zones are in all 50 states. You can look up on your iPhone, you kind of type in New Jersey interactive map opportunity zone. Like most states, there's a couple of ads, but you look for the nj.gov site or the nevada.gov site or the California, and it will take you to a map where you can, much like Google Maps, you can type in an address and it will take you to that site and tell you whether that site is in the zone or not. Okay, so very easy, 5-7 seconds on your iPhone to tell whether a site is in a zone or not. Next slide. So what does the zone tell you? It allows you to obtain a bunch of benefits that will help incent development in those zones. Okay, so again, all 50 states have zones. If you are buying, building, adaptively reusing real estate, so you're doing ground up construction, next slide, or adaptive reuse, that would work. If you're doing a business, so we want to do, fill in the blank, pizza place, hair salon, nail salon, which obviously I need a lot of that. Any kind of business in these zones other than the sin businesses would also work. What the slide's trying to tell you is why do people do these deals, and what was Senator Booker and Senator Scott trying to create? They're trying to create incentive for investment dollars to get off of the sidelines to invest in low income areas, either in businesses or in real estate development. The benefits are, as the slide indicates, threefold. You get deferral, you get reduction, you get elimination or exclusion. So DRE. What does that mean? It means that if we have capital gains from the sale of something, we would typically be paying those capital gain taxes to the federal government and to state government, okay? It allows you to, if you use the program appropriately, to defer paying those taxes. So instead of paying now, we get to pay later. So that sounds a little bit like, it's not that big a deal, but we don't have to pay now. So if we sold a piece of art, or we sold clothing, or we sold furniture, and we had gain of, let's just say, $1,000 of gain, we would typically be having to pay between 20 and 25% of that $1,000 of gain to the federal government. So somewhere between on a $1,000 gain, $200 to $250 would have to get paid to the federal government merely for selling something because we created gain. the program allows you to, instead of paying that $250, now you get to defer it till the end of 2026. So again, it started in 2018. That was a pretty long period of time to not have to pay. Every day that goes by, it starts to reduce until the end of 2026 when you're really getting no deferral. But so the first benefit is pay later, not now. Pay at the end of 2026. Second benefit is reduction. If you would have invested in 2018 or 19 or 2020 or 21, you got to reduce the amount that was subject to tax by, in the first 2 years, 15%, in last year and this year by 10%. 10%. So if we sold stock in Tesla and we had $1 million gain today, good day, and we would typically have to pay 25% on $1 million, 250 grand to the federal government. We don't have to pay that if we put the dollars into the program, the OZ program. We would pay at the end of 2026. If we do that in calendar year 2021 up till 12/31/2021, we get to reduce the amount subject to tax. In that example, the $1 million, we will reduce by 10%. So 10% on $1 million would be 100 grand. We would only have to pay on the net, the $1 million minus the 100 grand reduction. We only pay capital gains on the 900. That's the reduction. We would pay at the end of 2026. So again, first two benefits, defer, pay later, not now, end of 2026. Second benefit, if you do it in 2021, you get a 10% reduction in the amount subject to tax. That's our $100,000 on $1 million. We don't pay on any of that. We pay on the net, $1 million minus 100, 900 grand. We pay at the end of 2026. So first two benefits, defer, end of 2026, reduce, if we do it this year, 10%. We pay at the end of 2026. Those two benefits are nice. They are not the reason that people are doing this. The reason people are doing this is the last benefit. If we take our gain eligible dollars and we put them into a fund, and the fund puts it into real estate or a business in one of these zones in all 50 states, including New Jersey, and we stay there for 10 years, decently long period of time, but not that long. We stay there for 10 years, and thereafter we sell the thing we bought or built. 100 cents on the dollar is not subject to capital gains tax at the federal level, nor in New Jersey at the state level. 100 cents on the dollar with no cap. So if we took our $1 million of Tesla gain and we put it into a real estate project in one of these zones in New Jersey, and that real estate project appreciated from $1 million to 5 million, 10 million, 20, 100 million, doesn't matter, a billion, keep going. Whatever we would sell that for at the end of 10 years plus, so long as we sold it before the end of 2047, so it's 10 years, wait, sell before the end of 2047, 100 cents on that dollar is not subject to capital gains tax at the federal level or in 38 states, including New Jersey. Okay, so those benefits are pretty powerful. If we start a business and that business, goes wild, and we end up selling that business for 20 times what we built it for, that's not taxable if it's in the zone. So tenants in buildings that are built in the zone or tenants that move their businesses into the zone are eligible for that benefit. Deferral, reduction, pay, elimination after 10 years when we sell the business. Next slide. So again, a lot of people are looking at this. This is just a graphical representation of those time periods that I just talked about. Go to the next slide. And again, you'll get these slides so you can sort of look at this at your leisure, and we can chat about it offline if you'd like. What this slide talks about is kind of businesses and the investment that's eligible. So we sort of say, well, the benefits are deferral, reduction, elimination. How do we do this? Well, we need to have gain, either short-term or long-term capital gain. That gain needs to be invested in something called a fund. A fund, F-U-N-D, can be a tricked out Wall Street fund with all these bells and whistles. A fund can also be two people in an LLC. Could be a husband and wife, so long as the husband and wife have separate tax ID numbers. Okay, so two people in a limited liability company or a limited partnership are equal to a fund if they file the right paperwork. So dollars go into a fund then invests those dollars into a zone, into a business or real estate, and we have some rules we need to follow, but those rules are not that complicated. So in real estate, at 20,000 feet here, there are 3 rules: 180, 180, 30 months. What does that mean? 180 days from our gain event, our sale of Tesla, our sale of a piece of artwork, we take as much of that gain or as little as we want, and we put it into a fund, a bank account with the right attributes. That's the first 180. Once the fund touches the money, it needs to invest at least 90% of what it touched into a zone, into a business or real estate. That's the second 180. So again, we have a gain event, we sell Tesla. We take as much or as little of the gain as we want, we put it into a fund within 180 days. That solves the first 180. Once the fund touches the money, it needs to spend at least 90% of what it touches within 180 days. So if we put $1 million in the fund, we would need to spend at least $900,000. That would be 90% of $1 million. If it's real estate, the rules require us to improve the real estate. We can't just buy and do nothing. We need to double the price of the building that we buy within 30 months plus $1. So if we buy land and building for $10 million and the land is worth $2 and the building is worth $8, we need to improve the building by another $8 million plus $1. Change the facts, we still buy $10 million worth of real estate, but the land is worth $4 and the building is worth $6 million. We need to invest another $6 million plus $1 in the real estate in order to qualify. What qualifies for investment? Dollars for this doubling of the cost of the building. Hard costs, so things you can touch: brick, HVAC, concrete, glass. Also soft costs: planning, permitting, legal, accounting, demolition. Those things also count for us doubling the cost of the building within 30 months. Next slide. So again, we've got these rules that require us to take some of the gain or all of it, put it into a fund. The fund then invests it into a project, either real estate or a business. If it's real estate, we need to improve the value, either build something ground up or adaptively reuse it within that 30-month period in order to double the investment in the building. Okay. I talked a little bit about the sin businesses, things you can't use the program for. They're a little bit odd. They're a little bit different than what we would necessarily think is sin, maybe, but depends on who we're talking about. So the rules don't allow you to have a racetrack, no golf course, no sale of liquor for off-site consumption. So a liquor store, a traditional liquor store in New Jersey would be that. A bar is fine because it's on-site as opposed to off-site. So again, golf course, horse racing, liquor store. No hot tub sales. Can't tell you why. No hot tub sales. Apparently that's sin. No massage parlors. Apparently that's sin. And no gambling. So gambling, hot tubs, liquor don't count. So you can't use that. Could you, for a casino, the casino floor wouldn't count, but could we build a hotel? Sure. That's not gambling. It's a hotel use. So again, those 6 uses we cannot use OZ eligible dollars for. Beyond that, the sky's the limit. Whatever you'd want to invest in from a business perspective, you can create that: pizza parlor, nail salon, etc. We can also buy real estate and improve it. We can buy land and build buildings. Next slide. The program, the Opportunity Zone program, is also stackable. What does that mean? It means that you can use it along with other tax credit programs. So like this slide says, you can use it with new markets. You can use it with low-income housing tax credits. You can use it with historics. You can use it with investment tax credits if you were doing solar or renewable energy. The program doesn't require you to pick one or the other. You get to use both of the benefits of the program. They stack on top of each other. Next slide. So they work together. Again, we talked a bit about the fund. That typically is where the dollars that are the gain eligible dollars need to go. Next slide. And this again is a graphical representation of the time frame. If we invested in 2021, what happens 2021 to 2026? We pay in 2026. We hold the project for 10 years. We sell before the end of 2047. We don't pay gain on that sales price. Next slide. Again, that's the end of the slide relative to that picture. Again, these deals are wide ranging. I've been lucky, good, whatever, more lucky than good, to have been able to work on about 124, whatever, of these transactions in the last 3 years. They range in size from the smallest was $750,000. The biggest is currently going on. It's about $1.5 billion. But most of them are in the middle. They tend to be about 50 million to 70 million. They tend to be for housing, but they don't have to be. But there's a lot of housing that's been programmed. You'll see from the slide kind of the different types of transactions that we've worked on that, we're not exclusive. There's a bunch of people working on these projects all over the place. Towns like yours are thinking about how do they incent developers to come and redevelop. Municipalities as well as counties thinking about, do I have the right tools in the tool shed to help a developer who we want to bring into the community to help redevelop? Answer, sure. The OZ, as many have said, next slide, is something not for everyone, but what it allows one to do is take a good deal and make it very good. It does not take a bad deal and make it good. So if a bad deal is a bad deal, the OZ doesn't make it good. If a good deal that stands on its own 2 feet is in a zone, one can make it very good for the investor, which again is driving or intending to drive the behavior of investing in various communities. Next slide. So again, I'll leave you to, kind of these slides to digest. I'm around, happy to chit chat online, happy to have live conversations over coffee or Zoom. Again, what the goal is to give you kind of an overview of the program if you hadn't heard about it, or if you wanted a little bit more information. It allows investors to get deferral, reduction, and elimination on their capital gains. They get to defer the gains until the end of 2026. They get to reduce the gains if they invest them up, at the end of this year. They pay at the end of 2026 as reduced if they invested this year. They hang in there for 10 years. They sell after 10 years. And if they do that, then there's no gain on the sale. Next slide. And so, again, this just goes over the 1031 program is a nice program, but it's clunky and old. The OZ is much more flexible and wide and allows for more creativity. The OZ also 1031s only apply to real estate. The opportunity zone applies to not only real estate, but if you close your eyes and think what's in your apartment or your house, anything in there that you would sell. So a car, the house, furniture, fixtures, clothing, jewelry, booze, artwork, Bitcoin, if you do that stuff, stock in a company. All of that stuff works in an OZ, does not work in a 1031. 1031, again, only applies to real estate. OZ, much broader, much wider. Next slide. I'm seeing some questions. Let's see here. Hello, Andrew. Are you here on behalf of one of the speakers? Okay, so that's a whole other thing. Andrea will deal with whoever that question's from. Next slide. Deal terms real quick, and then I want to turn it back to Daryl for some thoughts. Deal terms tend to be in these transactions, again, this is for real estate I'm talking about, the investors tend to look for a 6 to 8% return, so a preferred return, they get their money first. There is money that is paid to people that bring equity to deals. People are asking all kinds of crazy things. They're getting about 1 to 2%. So to the extent you bring equity to a deal, there's typically a fee involved in that. That's cost in the transactions. Developers who are doing these deals are tending to charge about a 4% development fee on hard costs. Some are asking much higher than that, but it tends to shake out about 4% to 5% on hard costs. Early on, people were asking 8%. That's kind of silly, but some deals have gotten it. Again, there are asset management fees, property management fees, leasing, and acquisition fees, as one would anticipate. And those are kind of the round terms of a deal. Rob asked, can we talk about securing OZs for development prior to a CO? Sure, that's a little bit in the weeds, Rob, but happy to talk about that real quick. So let me get to the next slide, and then we'll go back to pre-TCO. Next slide. So again, these are things that work in the zone that people don't always think about. The third bullet is about the SIN businesses. These are different businesses that we've been working with that have done transactions to create or move their business into a zone, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's a property company and a tenant, the operating company. We've done logistics businesses. We've done a daycare, a pizza place, an optician, smaller. We've done kind of a large manufactured housing where they're tricking out an old factory and making it into, they're making boxes that become manufactured housing, small homes for veterans, as well as hotels and such. So that's that. Rob, to your question, just to circle backwards, I talked about the rules of 180, 180, and 30. 180 days from a gain event to put dollars into a fund. Fund then has to deploy within 180 days, 90%. And if it's real estate, you need to double the value of the building that you're buying. Double the value of the building you're buying. Okay, so if we, again, that's the $10 million, $2 million to land, $8 million to building. So the general rule that everyone should lock into is I need to double the value of the building we're buying. So would a fully leased apartment building with people in it work? Hard to make it work. Why? Because you need to double the value of the building you're buying. We would need to do an addition to that building, a wing, a new building next to it. If you had enough land, you could do that. But it's hard to double the value of an existing building, which is why adaptively reusing, so taking an old warehouse and making it into residential, taking residential, making it into a hotel, taking a hotel and making it into a science lab. All of that would work, adaptive reuse. Ground up construction would work. That would work. I just said that twice. So that would definitely work. Anyway, there are 3 exceptions to the general rule that you need to double the value of the building. One is if you buy environmentally tainted property, so there's something wrong environmentally, and you, quote, make it safe, end quote, the rules do not require you to double the value of that building. Why? Because the IRS is trying to incent people to clean up historically environmentally tainted buildings, and they're not going to force you to double the value of that building. They're just going to make you clean it up. They're going to hope that enlightened self-interest, that you want to make money off of it, is going to push you to putting more money into the project. So one exception to doubling the value of the building is environmentally tainted. Second exception is vacant property. If you buy vacant property that's been vacant for more than 3 years from when you buy, so looking backwards 3 years with licenses and inspection, you don't need to double the value of the building. Again, you just need to buy it. Why? Because they realize that if you don't spend money on it, you're not going to get any money. And so unlikely that people would do this without some level of additional incentive. The third exception is if you buy property that has not been placed into sort of service in the parlance of tax people, which I am not one of, but if you buy one before there is a CO, a certificate of occupancy, and before anybody has moved in for its intended purpose, so no CO and nobody's moved in yet, then that's deemed to be original use property. Why? Because no one's moved in yet, no one's used it, there's been no depreciation yet. If you buy one of those properties, a TCO, temporary CO before a permanent, and you invest through an opportunity zone fund, 100 cents on your dollar count towards the OZ, and you don't need to double the value of the building. Why? Because no one's used it yet. So if one was able to buy prior to CO issuance property with nobody moving in, you get the benefit of the program without having to take the construction development risk. You just need to take the leasing risk to move people on. So a lot of people are kind of hunting for those projects. I hope that answered your question. Next slide. So I'm going to sort of pause here, go to the next one. I'm looking for one slide. Again, social impact. There's a lot of ESG, environmental social governance investing going on in the space relative to trying to incent behavior to build affordable housing, which we are in dire need of. Same thing to build workforce housing. Lots needed everywhere and not being built at a fast enough clip. Flip to the next slide, please. Again, you'll go through the rest of the slides at your leisure. What this goes through are some of the rules that were put into effect. Behind this, we've had some maps that show kind of all the states that have signed on to the program, so that if you do a deal in their state, like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Delaware, et cetera, you get the benefit of, deferral, reduction, elimination, not only at the federal level, but you also get it at the state level. So I have spoken enough. I'm sure people would say I've spoken, well, my wife would definitely say that. I've spoken quickly. So if you have additional questions, again, we're happy to address them either online or after. Daryl, I want to kick it to you and sort of get your view from on high on, as you talk to developers and towns about what they're doing, kind of what are you seeing as the impediments in the program so far?
Well, first of all, thanks, Brad. Excellent job. I mean, to answer your question, the primary impediments what we have seen in the marketplace is just people knowing that it exists. I mean, there are, particularly on the municipal side, because they really don't get into the weeds of where the money is coming from, particularly when a deal comes to them. It's kind of what we call baked. The capital stack is already, but they need to understand the tax benefits that are there, that they can tell the marketplace that exists. And so most of it, the impediments are from the municipality side, them not knowing that it exists and that there are deals out there in the marketplace, and particularly there are deals out there in the marketplace that they can benefit from the financing. So we have, from the NJRA perspective, what we have done is just go throughout the state, as far up to Patterson, as down to Salem, New Jersey, and try to make the information available to the existing municipalities and tell them that it's there. These are two tremendous benefits. One tremendous benefit to help stimulate urban development, which we focus on each and every day at the NJRA.
Towns are coming to you, or are you getting more developers coming to you, or they're not sure where to look and they don't know where to go?
It's primarily towns. The towns that they, like I said, they don't know that this product exists. They don't know how it works. They don't know the benefits. So we've taken a leadership position from the state to tell them what exists, how it works, and how it can benefit their particular municipality.
And is NJRA helping these towns with like planning and or resource allocation, or how would NJRA get involved with those towns?
Really, from our perspective right now, it's just information. I mean, we do have some financing resources from the NJRA, from the EDA, and from the HMFA that we can provide some incentives here and there. But we take in the position right now just to tell them what's out there in the marketplace, particularly how the product works.
Super. And have you worked, can you tell us about a couple of towns maybe that you've worked with so far that are, I don't want to say open for business, but are very interested in the OZ and seeing redevelopment happen in their town?
Oh, one, we worked in Asbury Park in southern New Jersey. They are very interested. You see a lot of movement down there. So, we've been there like twice to tell them what's out there, what exists. The other one is Hackensack, New Jersey, where you see a tremendous amount of development in northern part of New Jersey. And then the last one I say is Burlington, New Jersey, where we have spent a lot of time there just trying to really provide them with information.
And so let's probe there. Do they have kind of a zoning overlay that they can give a developer? I've worked with a variety of towns as well. Mm-hmm. And, the ask is, well, you were general counsel at a REIT before, you work at a big firm now doing development deals. What is it that developers, are looking for? And my answer to them is developers are looking for execution. They don't want to putz around for a year and then be told no. So if you tell them no up front, then okay, they'll move on to something else. But if you tell them, here's what we want, here's what we will allow for. So here's our zoning map. Here's where our OZs are, both overlaid on each other. And here's what we, the town mothers and fathers, are looking for. We don't want to build a hotel here. We don't want to build a gaming thing here. We don't want to build, this here, but we prefer it to be here, here, and here. That's kind of the direction they're looking for, that the town has its act together, that the town has talked to the citizenry and has discussed, where would you like affordable? Where would you like, market rate? Where would you like workforce housing? What kind of commercial development do you want in your town and where? So the developer doesn't have to sort of figure that out and go to a zoning hearing and hear like, the pitchforks come out and the torches. That no, we don't want that here. They don't want to waste time. They want to be told you can do that or you can't. And the quicker a town can get to that place where the citizens are okay with and happy with what's going to be put there, then the developer will make a decision economically as to, does that make sense to me to go build there?
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of it is homework on the town side as to what they want as a government and what the citizens want. Is that fair, do you think?
No, that's very fair. The smaller towns are really where the biggest climb is to provide those opportunities, primarily because they don't have the infrastructure. I mean, a large town like Jersey City, Newark, they know what they're doing, kind of in a sense. But the smaller towns is really where the education needs to happen, and for them to get ready. Because, as I said, Asbury Park, I mean, you can see a tremendous amount of development there, and the municipality is doing a great job to try to, change their internal. Because that's if you're going to kill a deal, the deal is going to be killed internally. Unfortunately, zoning, people not ready, and that's what we came and said. How can we help you? Our partners, the DCA, who the NJRA reports to, the Department of Community Affairs, really is doing a hands-on touch with these smaller municipalities to give them, information access to really help these big deals go forward. Like I said, the city of Asbury has had a large climb, but how do we make it good for them?
Great point. And so again, would your suggestion be the first stop be the town zoning office, the mayor's office, or come to NJRA, or all three?
All three. I mean, NJRA, the great benefit is that we know the town. So we can get in there and we can help uncover some of the, the obstacles that are there. And when towns see us coming, it's really helpful to them because we bring so much resources. So we have a motto that says we're there first. And we like to be in there holding their hands, talking to them, meeting with the municipalities, and then hopefully we can get a deal done. But, we really get there, just from a developer perspective, come to us. Let us talk to you. I mean, these seminars that we're doing with the Redevelopment Training Institute was a great entree to learn what's out there in the marketplace.
Okay, so training, understand the program a little bit. You guys can help kind of move them through the process as to what would be entailed. Let them know what funding sources there are, either at NJRA or at NJEDA. And let them know which towns are interested in the program and which towns have OZs. Again, not every town has them, but many of the towns that we would think would have them do have them. But surprisingly, some of the towns that you wouldn't think would be on HUD's map of low, moderate income are there. And so that's why the mapping technology is worth checking out. In particular, if you're a developer, it takes, again, 5 seconds. I put the map up there. You can download that. Every state has that similar site. And so you can sort of see when you're hunting for deals or projects where those OZs are, and to the extent it's of interest to you.
My counterpart, what we can do, not to cut you off, Brad, my counterpart, Oscar Parham, who runs the RTI program, I can connect him with a map that the DCA, Department of Community Affairs, has throughout the state of New Jersey. We've done extensive work on where it is located. And as you said earlier, we had to be prepared from the federal to tell them what areas to be approved anyway. So we have mapping technology, we have everything. And it's a great tool that we can provide to anyone who's interested. So I can have Oscar reach out to someone at DCA to get that information and provide it to anyone who's interested.
Perfect. So we got a couple of questions. We're actually on time, which is stunning for me. I'm never on time this way, always talking too long. So we're on time. One of the questions that came from Craig, what professionals are needed, if any, to establish an OZ fund, and what's the typical cost to set up the fund? Okay, so in short, there's no professional required, no professional mandated. So if one was interested, one could set up their own fund. Probably not a good idea, but if you're capable, God bless you, and you can do that. Why do I say that? Again, it's just a question of how comfortable are you forming an entity at the state level. It's not rocket science, but you kind of need to know what you're doing. You need to get an employee identification number. Again, it's a free service with the IRS. You need to file some paperwork. So you create an entity. you get an employee identification number, and then you need to execute an operating agreement that would be either for a limited liability company, an LLC, or a partnership agreement that would be for a limited partnership or a general partnership. Those are kind of the three things you would need in order to create a fund. You would then go to the bank, you go to your bank and open up a bank account that would be the fund, the QOF's bank account, okay? Because you're going to need to show the IRS that gain eligible dollars went into this fund. So could you do it yourself? Sure. Are there professionals that can help you do it? Yes. Would I suggest using a professional? Big surprise. Yes, I would in this instance. We've done it a bunch of times. There's plenty of others that have done it a bunch of times. There are funds out there that you could invest in that you don't have to go through this, but they tend to charge what folks in the industry call load, quote unquote. And that load is a couple of, it's 1, 2, 3, 5% of the asset value of the fund. So you're paying somebody else to do what you could do for yourself. They professionally run it versus you. So there's a, weighing there. It tends to take, if you called and said, Brad, I need help. I heard what you said. You were sort of understandable, but not really. So, but we want to create a fund and we want to do it by the end of the year. It typically would take somebody that knows what they're doing like 2 days to do, meaning I would have somebody, a paralegal, form the entity for you. We would get the EIN for you. That takes, forming entities like 10 minutes. Getting the EIN is like 5 minutes, but there's 2 days, you have to wait 1 day in order to get the EIN from the formation. And then it would take me, a couple of hours to do an operating agreement. Why? Because I've done this over and over and over again, and I, at this point, know what they should say. There are plenty of bald guys like me and women with hair, they don't have to be bald, and guys with hair. So there are plenty of lawyers that can do this. You don't need to use me, but there are plenty out there that should know what they're doing. But it's a relatively new arena, and so some corporate lawyers who know how to form entities may not understand the nuances of the Opportunity Zone program. And so a typical way in an operating agreement that one settles disputes, if your partners can't figure it out, is to have a buy-sell mechanism, where if one party is not happy with the other party and they can't figure it out, they can exercise the right to buy the other party out. Okay? Traditional time-honored tale of how you solve problems. That's fine in the real world. In OZ land, if somebody gets bought out before the end of the 10 years, they lose all their tax benefits. So that would be very bad for them. And yet in the beginning of OZ world, I saw a bunch of documents that had buy sells in them and that people didn't understand that would be a bad thing. And so again, you want to get to a professional that knows what they're doing. You also want to have a good accountant involved so that you understand what the tax ramifications are of when you put dollars in, which are zero, but when you take dollars out, what happens? So my answer, Craig, to your question is, yeah, I think it's a good idea to have a professional. And I think it's important to have a good accountant involved, in particular for the filing of the annual testing documentation. The rules allow you to do it yourself. It's totally fine, if you want. I'm just saying my sense is, and my suggestion is, it's worth a couple of dollars to get professionals involved so that your derriere is protected. Second question, what happens if you don't meet the deadline for 180 days to invest the funds? Nothing. The sky doesn't fall. You're not visited by, bad people. If you missed 180 days from when you sold something, you're just not eligible to participate for that gain. So if we sold Tesla today and we had $1 million gain, if we count, 181 days and all of a sudden I wake up and I say, oh my God, I want to invest 400 grand, 500 grand, 600 grand in a fund on the 181st day, I'm SOL at that point. If I did it, I would not get the benefit of deferral reduction elimination. I could still put money into it, and if I like the deal, but I wouldn't get any benefit on the OZ side. No deferral, no reduction, no elimination. It doesn't stop you from investing in the deal. The deal needs to be a good deal. If I like the deal, I can still invest. I just don't get the OZ benefits. That's what happens. Next question. Do you have to pay an investor a preferred return during the development process, or is it 100% of the invested investment held to receive the gain? Okay, let me change the question a little bit. Typically, a preferred return during the development period, there is no money coming in. We're building a building. We have no, cash flow. And so that preferred return is cumulative, meaning if it's not paid 1 year, you pay it twice in the second year. If it's not paid in the second year, you pay it in the third year. So during the development process, typically you don't get the preferred return. You would get it once the building is operational and cash flowing, okay? But it's cumulative. What's required after 10 years to receive the capital gain appreciation benefit? Good question. You just need to sell. So the benefit is upon a sale, you don't pay the gain. So you need to sell the property or the business after 10 years, but before the end of 2047. So if you sell up to 12/31/2047, you don't pay tax on if you follow the rules. If you sell after 2047, 2048, you would have to pay tax again. So again, you want to sell in that after 10-year window, but before the end of 2047. Last questions on the screen. Taisha asks, how does the developer access or apply for funds? Well, I leave that one to NJRA. There's not OZ funds that are just sitting in a can, a kettle, whatever, somewhere where you can sort of reach your hand in and take them. You got to find investors that have OZ eligible dollars. There are a lot of them. Sort of anybody who has gain could invest into a deal. So there's folks all over the place, Pennsylvania, Jersey, Delaware, that have capital gains. Different question than accessing, dollars at the state level or at the NJRA level or at the EDA level, Economic Development Authority. As was being said earlier by Daryl, NJRA has funds available for deals. So does NJEDA in order to incent what they believe to be public policy decision making. So adaptive reuse, of older properties, affordable housing, other things they do have dollars for that can be used to assist. My sense is they're going to get more dollars, hopefully, under the infrastructure bill that just passed over on Saturday. And we'll see where, part two ends up, which is the social policy piece, the 1.7 trillion. What was already passed was the hard infrastructure bill. And so that's law. It's, water, roads, bridges, and dollars will flow to folks like NJRA in order to help municipalities with those types of projects. Taisha, I hope I answered the question. If I didn't, just, hassle me. Okay, so that is the end of our first session. Hope you enjoyed. Hope we didn't confuse you too much. And if I did, feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to talk to you offline. We've got two great panelists up, which I will pester with questions a little bit as we go. But Phil and Rob, I could introduce you, but I'd rather have it that you will introduce yourselves, and I'll cut you off if you're going too long. But so, Rob, who are you? What do you do? And where do you do it? And also, what's your favorite candy? So who are you? What do you do? Where do you do it? And what's your favorite candy?
I don't like candy. I don't like sweets. I'm sorry to say that. I'm embarrassed. But I do like oatmeal cookies, if that counts. I don't know.
That counts. We'll give you credit for oatmeal cookies.
Okay. Okay. So I'm Bob Hutchins. I'm the CEO of Elevaz Impact Capital. We are a professional opportunity zone advisory and management company. We're also impact investment advisors to ultra high net worth families. Sometimes it's easy to explain what we're not as our definition. As a group of primarily a couple of CPAs, attorneys, we act more like a professional service organization. Excuse me. We represent investors who want to invest in opportunity zones or ultra high net worth families who want to either invest passively in OZ funds for capital gains tax benefits or do impact investing, and we can customize those investments to whatever their heart's desires. One of our family office clients is very dedicated to veterans, and there are 2,000 or 220,000 veterans sleeping on the streets in this country every night. So we're building a project to affordable housing for low-income low income homeless veterans and their families. So we represent investors. We're not a private equity firm. We don't charge carried interest. We have I think is there my deck up there?
We'll put that up in a couple minutes. So this was just a quick overview.
Okay. So we're basically a advisory firm that has proprietary social impact funds and OZ funds. We're currently fundraising our third OZ fund, Impact OZ fund, our one non-OZ impact fund, and two captive OZ funds for our family office clients.
Okay, so you're finding investors, you're helping them find deals in the OZ and in environmental impact or ESG impact investing, and you like oatmeal cookies. We got that.
Right.
Excellent. Okay, Phil, who are you? What do you do? Where do you do it? And what's your favorite candy or cookie?
Sure. Philip Ivansky. I'm one of the managing partners at Peak Properties, and we are a developer, owner, operator, which means that we actually develop to own and operate our own buildings. This is very different than a lot of developers who typically develop and try and flip their buildings. But we think very long term, since my partner and I actually invest our own money in our deals. And so we're thinking about owning and operating the real estate for the long term. We focus solely on New Jersey, very specifically urban New Jersey. We focus only on multifamilies. We were one of the earliest adopters of the QOF program, and we are on our 5th property-specific OZ deal. And I'll get into why we did it that way. And I'll get into some more details on our deck on how much capital we've raised and what kind of capital we raised and how we raised it. But again, effectively, we are the development side who are using OZ funds to actually build multifamily projects in municipalities that we are partnerships with. So you guys talked a lot about this between Daryl and Brad. You talked a lot about working with the municipalities. This program does not work, or any real estate development doesn't work, unless you're actually working in partnership with your municipality and you're on the same page on what they want as well as what you want. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well on our deck.
Your favorite candy?
I love candy, so I'll take Kit Kats, Milky Way, Snickers, whatever you want.
Okay, the little midnight Milky Way. Gotcha. Perfect. All right, so I think you are kicking off the slide deck. So let's talk for a couple of minutes about kind of a specific case study that you wanted to share relative to what you guys are doing. We've got about, we'll call it like 7 minutes. I'll corral you in if you get too excited. And why don't we pull up your deck and we'll go from there.
Okay, you want to start with mine?
Yeah,
specific? Okay, that's fine. Let's start with that one. Hopefully they'll should be able to pull it up. While we're waiting for this slide, so this is, like I said, our 5th property-specific QOF. It's a project called Lincoln Place. This is in Orange, New Jersey. This is going to be a 100-unit multifamily building. Next slide, please. I'm going to skip this because we already talked about that. The team. So this is very important. We actually have the same team that we work with on a regular basis. So the architects, the GC, our accounting, and our legal, pretty much everybody is the same on every deal that we've done. Brad did mention this. I would highly recommend anybody who's interested in setting up a QOF, you definitely want to have some form of accounting and legal professional help. This is fairly easy to do, but there are some nuances that you can get tripped up very easily. We've seen it in other deals that people thought they had a QOF and they weren't actually eligible because of the way that it was structured. Next. So here's a list of all the funds that we've raised in the last couple of years. And the reason I wanted to show this is we've raised close to $41 million for all of our projects. Some of our projects are designated as QOF. So for that, we've raised almost $21 million in QOF funds. Very interestingly, I would tell you about 70% of our investors actually use capital gains to invest in our deals. The other 30% do not, meaning they're just putting in regular dollars. As Brad said, I think earlier, at the end of the day, this is a real estate deal first, and all this does is add on some additional tax benefits to the investors if they can take advantage of it. So we do have investors that want to invest simply because it's a very good real estate deal, including myself. Money that I put into these deals, I don't have a lot of capital gains since I am a real estate guy. So I don't get the benefits, but I get the benefits of it being a very good real estate deal. Next slide. Just a picture. Next slide. So just a little bit about this building. I think this is very important. Opportunity zones are located all over the place, but you really do have to find an opportunity zone that's location, 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 right? This project is 1 block from the Highland train station in Orange, New Jersey. We are working with the municipality in which we will receive a 30-year tax abatement. We're expecting to be at about a 5% for the first 15 years. That's very important. We would never build a building unless we had some kind of tax incentive because it would not be economical to do it. In this case, we already had a 40-unit building that was approved, and all we're doing is expanding because we were able to buy the lot next to this, and we're going to increase it to a 100-unit building. We've already raised $4 million of equity for this particular fund, and we'll be out in the next, let's say, February, March of next year, raising the remaining $5 to $6 million of equity. Next slide. Here's just a picture of Orange, New Jersey. Orange was very early in getting onto this program. And so you can see they've actually gotten 4 opportunity zones designated within their municipality. So most of Orange is actually an OZ. This project, as you can see, is right on the border between what would be a non-OZ census tract and what is an OZ census tract, and it's also close to the train station. Next slide. This is just a little bit of a zoom in that you can see we're literally 1 block from the Highland train station, which gets you to New York City in 30 minutes. Next slide. And so why Orange? Very important. They've recently passed a master zoning plan. So, they've come out and said, look, we want to do development. Here's what we want to change in order to incentivize people to come here. They are administratively ready to do this. That's very important because you need to have planning boards, city councils, building departments all on the same page that they want to do this. If 1 or 2 or 3 of those don't want to do it, you're not going to get anything done, even if you think it's a great project in a great OZ. They are committed to working with us. So in this case, they have said, we want to work with these developers. We are going to help you through this process. It's not going to take you 3 to 4 years to get your project approved. And like I said, they were proactive in getting the 4 opportunity zones. So they saw this as a program that could really help drive development within their community. Next. Just as a picture of the ground floor of really, just kind of give you a basic example. This is where the parking is. Next slide. This would be a layout of the building. This is very standard, pretty standard layouts. Next slide. What we tend to do is we focus on studios and 1-bedrooms because the price point, which I'll show you in a second, is much more affordable. So we're really trying to drive brand new developments that are affordable for people in these communities. So go to the next slide. I'll give you the example is most of our 1-bedrooms, the rents are around $1,750. But if you compare this to any other project that's near a train station in all of these towns, they're closer to, and this is a little bit old because they're actually closer to like $2,100 a month. So what this is allowing us to do is to bring, it's market rate rent. I mean, it's market rate apartments, but it's at an affordable level. And we're able to do that because of the incentives that we get through both the OZ and the capital that we raise, as well as the pilot programs with the city. Next. And just in terms of structure, Brad talked about this, but if you wanted to know specifically, this is a deal. The way this is set up, it's a little more complicated than normal. But if you think about a real estate deal, the way you would set up a normal real estate deal is pretty much the way this is set up. But it starts with, you have a QOF, which is the fund. That fund is actually going to invest in another LLC below, which actually owns the real estate. In our case, we created an extra manager that has a 1% ownership. That's probably not necessary. For us, it was. But in terms of the preferred returns and stuff that we offer to all of our investors, it's all standard. We offer a 7% preferred return. We offer a 25% promote that goes to us once you've reached that 7% preferred. And I think the difference between us and some of the bigger funds is we only charge things like a development fee or a construction management fee. What we don't charge are things like asset management fees or fund administrative fees. We're not really looking to make money on the fund. We simply just set it up as a way to give investors who have capital gains the ability to use those capital gains. And if you don't, again, you're just making a regular real estate investment. And I think that's it. I mean, I'm happy to get into more details about the project, but I know we're a little bit short on time.
Okay, I guess I'm up, right? So, Elevaz Impact Capital is as I said before, a professional advisory firm for opportunity zone investors as well as social impact investors. Our makeup of leadership is CPAs and attorneys. My background is as a tax advisor to ultra high net worth families, privately held businesses. And so I spent most of my life minimizing state and income taxes for my rather well-to-do clients. We represent investors. Oh yeah, good. Thank you. To explain ourselves, let's look at a mission statement, which I think is interesting. We look to create place-based social value. And our mission is helping private sector impact investors participate in building sustainable communities that create dignified, affordable homes and decent work for everyone. We do this with best-in-class, low-fee, transparent impact investment asset class that represents our shared values of financial and impact return. We study the shared values theories of Professor Michael Porter, that you can have private capital should drive itself to where society needs it the most. We think there's an efficient way to do that and to reward both the investor and the communities that we serve. So how did we do this? In order to create a new asset class, we partnered with a New Jersey Community Capital, the largest community development financing institute in the state of New Jersey, one of the largest on the East Coast, with 34 years of distressed community development finance experience as a lender, though, in debt, not in equity. We're equity investors. So that we could put together our independent advisory professionals and the power of equity capital from the private sector to accelerate good social impact projects, as well as provide the equity layer of capital necessary in capital stacks to make great projects happen. Classically, the not-for-profit sector is mission-driven. They work on a programmatic cost system, which means they don't take any profits out. They basically pay for the program that's happening. We work the same way. We don't have carried interest. We invest with all of our, can you go back a little bit? We invest with all of our investors on the exact same terms. So our fee schedule is based on the cost to provide due diligence, management, monitoring, etc. And a lot of our deals come through to us through our partnership with New Jersey Community Capital, which may in the case we're going to talk about, provides some funding as well as access to tax credits and other incentives. Next slide. So I talked about shared values. This is Professor Michael Porter of Harvard wrote books on this. Shared values, in our minds, shared value impact investing is the investor's intentional solving of specific and significant societal problems. It's a higher calling than ESG or responsible or SRI. So in our case, we look to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 of them, and number 11 is sustainable communities. We think this is where we can make the most impact and the applicable outcome targets of safe and affordable housing. Similar to social entrepreneurship, except that private capital is not donated, but invested for a reasonable return to the investor at a reasonable risk assumption to accomplish a goal that makes a positive change in people's lives. The secondary goals, which are a product of our safe and affordable housing, is we like to partner with other not-for-profit organizations in the communities that will provide health care, educational, and economic opportunity to our residents or our home buyers. The idea being is they know better. Their boots are on the ground, and they know best what our residents need to create a better life for themselves. So we like to partner with our not-for-profit. That's our uniqueness, I think, and a part of some of our strategic advantage. Next slide. So since we represent the investors, like I said, we're not a private equity firm. We're not a developer. For instance, I might call up Phil and say, "Hey, Phil, I'm interested I like what you do. You have a great product and a great reputation. If you need a co-developer or another opportunity zone fund to make a deal work, let's talk." And so we'll represent our investor group, what we call Elevaz Impact Angel Network, and bring money to a deal to a private developer or to a not-for-profit affordable housing developer like Community Asset Preservation Corporation, which is one of our partners in a number of projects. And we are meeting constantly with other private developers who are in our space, want to work with impact investing, as well as not-for-profit affordable housing developers who are looking for funding to scale. So when we look at deals, we think in terms of investment management and risk management. We look for nonprofit partners that can give us some acquisition power, that they have access to the types of properties that we want to work involved. I'm a tax guy. I spent most of all my career keeping taxes to a minimum for my clients. So we look for tax and economic incentives in the capital structure. We offer professional management. We are more like a family office, angel investing group. We don't take carried interest. We invest alongside our investors at exactly the same terms, and we have a low management fee structure. On the risk management side, we're an alternative investment. We're a non-correlated asset class, which makes us pretty attractive to everybody who's got a lot of money in the stock market. We have now a multi-asset fund for our OZ, which would have diversified products. But the interesting thing is we can customize people's investment and say, if you want to see an investment in Burlington County that's going to meet special needs, and we can make it work as an economic instrument, then we'll do that project, show it to us. So we work with our impact investor clients in choosing some of the deals that we go. We have a long-term vision. We're not transactionary. If we acquire a 50-unit OZ project for rental over 10 years, and there's half a dozen vacant lots in the area, we'll come in there and with one of our other funds, and we'll clean them up, build workforce housing, and try to sell those houses for ownership to people in the 80 to 90% of the AMI. So we take a more strategic view to our mission of building sustainable communities. We try to keep a low debt. We're pretty risk averse, really, and we insist on a priority, preferred return, and cumulative to our Elevaz investors before our developer partners take their money out of the deal. Next slide. So our first fund, which is still being developed, we only opened up our fund in January of 2020. Perfect timing. But that had reasons for that. It wasn't really until December of 2019 that the final regulations came out that gave solid guidance to fund advisors. We made a significant commitment to the Newark Arts Commons, which is a partnership with New Jersey Community Capital involvement, and Community Asset Preservation Corporation, as well as a private developer who was involved. The project will have 94 co-living residences on the top 3 floors. The first 2 floors will be made up of a glass blowing factory and glass blowing educational classrooms, coffee shop, as well as artist studios. We're looking for an artist in residence. There'll be opportunities for artists to show their work, and almost in a kind of WeWork style. If you look at that picture all the way on the left, that's the cathedral, which is, this project's the old St. Mary's Hospital. And it's on the campus of the new St. Michael's, St. Michael's Hospital. And it's on the campus of the St. Michael's Medical Center. So we're right next door to where all of our essential workers, our heroes, our healthcare heroes that brought us through this horrible pandemic. We now will have workforce housing that will be just a walk away in a really neat setting that will provide for them. We're also within a few blocks of the Newark, New Jersey Institute of Technology. So that cathedral that you see on the bottom left is really kind of cool. We're getting a lot of historical tax credits for this job, and a lot of it's being done in the cathedral. It's being the whole building is, but the cathedral particularly, we have a specialty contractor building in there, and that's going to be a maker's place. So you'll have entrepreneurs, you'll have artists, you'll have all kinds of creative people working in there, and it's going to be really a neat spot. The building sits on the corner of the Arts District itself, so it is an arts flavor is important. We've also received a considerable amount of new market tax credits because we're providing 120 jobs. There's 80 in construction, and there'll be permanent jobs, 40 and more. It'll promote a considerable amount of opportunity for young people to learn the arts, glass blowing, etc. And so this is the kind of project that we like to be involved with, where we're changing neighborhoods, creating a platform for people to come in after us. Next slide. So our objective here is to make an impact, a significant impact. The Elavaz brand is all about impact investing. I think it was Daryl who talked about, the owners of Opportunity Zone properties, where we fill a tremendous need. And Brad brought this out because somebody asked a question: what advisors do you need to start an opportunity fund? And I agree with Brad. Starting an opportunity fund is very easy, and screwing it up is even easier. It's not starting an opportunity fund that makes that is the hard part. It's managing the compliance of that fund, and then making the correct investment in the qualified opportunity zone business, negotiating terms, and monitoring the project so that the subsidiary or the qualified opportunity zone business is complying with the tax regulations under 1400 Z2. So what we do is provide a turnkey package for sophisticated high net worth clients that have significant capital gains like the idea of dedicating some of that to impact investing. I will say that my experience has shown that there's no other company that is actually doing what we do. It's a brand new asset class, and there's nobody, at least in New Jersey, doing what we do, where we work with investors to help place them into opportunity zone investments. We've seen a lot of opportunities missed by OZ landowners who thought they knew what they were doing and made an investment in an opportunity zone census tract after the law, not realizing that they owned the property before and receiving no benefit. So one of the things I think that this OZ industry is missed is working with investors. I think there are more people who have the opportunity to invest in these, but they haven't had a proactive advisor to help them along. That's what we do. We work with CPA firms. We work with law firms. We're not lawyers, and I'm a CPA. I'm also a certified valuation analyst, but I work as an advisor. I work with Witham Smith and Brown, Cohen Resnick, KPMG. We work with a whole bunch of different places. We work with, we work with Brad's firm. We work with Sills Cummins. We work with Lowenstein. So we work with the others and investment advisors, independent financial advisors, RIAs, et cetera, working with CFPs, et cetera, working with them to customize a program that works for their clients. So we bring it all together. Our funds are, we think, low fee. We try to keep them low risk, and we try to keep in mind always that our client is our investor. And so that's how we probably are a little bit different, maybe a lot different than most opportunity funds that come along. We like to deal in towns where we have a good relationship. I think it was Phil, who is in Orange, and said he had a great relationship up there. We're the same way. We don't want to be anywhere where we're not wanted, and so that's a condition that we look to in our due diligence. And I'll leave that open if you have any questions. I'm glad to answer.
Great. That's awesome. So I just want to ask both of you real quick on a kickoff. What impediments did you guys face, using the OZ, and so biggest impediment, and what would you change if you could change anything in the program? So Phil, why don't I start with you, and then we'll pivot back to Rob. What would you change in the program? What was the biggest impediment?
First off, the biggest impediment was, I think, especially in the very beginning, people just didn't know the program, right? They didn't understand it. They didn't know it. Even to this day, I mean, prior to real estate, I've been in real estate for a decade now, but prior to that, I was on Wall Street for 20 years, and I have a lot of connections in the finance world. And still, to this day, people who have a ton of capital gains don't understand that this program exists. And when you start talking to them, they go, "Oh, I didn't even know that was there." So I think part of it is just getting out there. In terms of the program itself, frankly, I really haven't seen any issues with it. I think it's, obviously every program is going to have little things here and there, but for us, it's worked really well. We've raised 5 funds, property-specific funds, and, we have more that are in the pipeline with other municipalities that we're going to set up. So I don't have anything specific on that.
No worries. All good. Rob, what do you think? Biggest impediment, and what would you change?
Well, the biggest impediment really has been a lack of understanding of the OZ rules, an understatement of their complexity by taxpayers and perhaps professionals that, in my own profession, CPAs, in all honesty, you're shying away from recommending them. I'm shocked by it, but I think the problem is this. A high net worth individual, he read something in FA magazine or whatever, Forbes, he comes to Brad, he says, hey Brad, he goes, I got a $5 million capital gain on this stock. I heard about these opportunity zones. What do you think? You say, well, they're great. Let me show you how they go. You give him your, the song and dance. He says, holy crap, I want one of those, What happens after that? You hand it off to the CPA, who's going to be responsible for filling out the forms when he files his return. Well, when that happens, the taxpayer has already not complied with the tax rules. So the CPA sends them the return with penalties. You got something blowing around there. Yeah. I think we need to look at OZ, tax qualified opportunity zones, at least as an investor centric, which is what we are. We're an investor centric advisory firm. We look at it as, okay, Brad's going to do a great job. I know you're going to do a great job in my family office setting up a captive, but you're not going to take responsibility for my family office construction or developer adhering to the regulations. And then when their accounting firm, Withum Smith and Brown or whoever, does their tax return after the fact, they're not taking responsibility for their day-to-day, the day-to-day complex compliance requirements over that 180 days, 30 months, so on and so forth. The safe harbor business plan that has to be put together. It has to be in place. There's a lot of stuff that we didn't talk about that nobody has any idea about this stuff. So CPAs are afraid to recommend opportunity zone funds because they don't want to be the police department for their clients. So that's where we come in. It's almost like, you had a high net income individual and, you say, hey, you really need a defined benefit pension plan and we could smack away so much money every year and save on taxes. Well, you don't say, oh, okay, here, go fill out the form. This is what you do for your own defined benefit. You hire an actuary who's a professional who manages the pension fund, an investment professional who manages the investments. The guy saves a ton of money. The CPA or attorney who recommended them is a hero and didn't really do too much. And they file the returns for the end of the year, which is what we do. We actually file the returns both for the fund. We get an audit every year of the funds also. And we also will file the returns for the qualified OZ business if necessary.
So compliance.
Right. So we're basically running the process and preparing all the data that needs to be put to protect the 1400Z tax benefit over that entire time. We basically save the fund manager, the self-proclaimed fund manager from themselves. So that's the biggest obstruction to OZ funds really working. Now, Phil can hire somebody internally to do that, but a non-real estate guy or a non-private equity guy isn't going to have that. So there's a whole lot of money out there that are more passive, that would like to invest, I think, and are missing the opportunity because they screwed it up before they got into the opportunity fund. And then there's others who are more sophisticated, but they don't understand that there is a continuing complexity to the compliance that is even more than you went into, and you went into some reasonably amount of depth. Yeah,
makes sense. So compliance, complexity, focus, have good assistants, good professionals with you. Phil, there's a question for you. Can you explain why you set up round A and round B with different preferred returns?
Sure. So if you think about a typical development deal, historically, the way it was done, developer goes out, buys the land, does a bunch of entitlements, rezoning, then turns around and sells that land at a higher price into the deal, in which, he raises money for investors, then they go and they build the transaction. So the developer makes money by flipping that land into the deal, typically. In an OZ, it's a little bit trickier. When you go and you buy the land, you go through the entitlement process, and you're setting it up as an OC from day one. It gets more complicated if you want to flip that into another deal. And on top of it, you want to remain one of the investors. So all we simply did was we said, we're going to time the raising of our capital in 2 rounds, a round A and a round B. So if you need 10 million of capital for the entire equity for the deal, we would raise 5 million for the round A. We would use that money, buy the land, do the entitlements, maybe do some architectural work, whatever it takes to get the property ready to put a shovel in the ground. Because they're taking the money on early, we give them a 12% preferred return. So at the time we're ready to put a shovel in the ground, we will raise round B. Round B, right, will have the same seniority as round A in terms of where they sit. They all become the same, basically the same level. The difference is we give the round A its preferred up to that point, and it's like they start over. Now both round A and round B are earning 7% going forward, and it looks like a traditional deal. So it was just a way to incentivize people to come in early and give them some higher return in the beginning. But at the end of the day, it's really because of the structure of the OZs that we were forced to kind of come up with a unique way of raising the money at different times. That was it.
Makes sense. Good stuff. I got a question also on, could I talk about single family home sales? So again, sure. Chris asked that question, and I'm happy to respond to that. Sales within the 10-year period are typically deadly in the OZ. Again, it's not that the sword of Damocles comes down and chops your head off. It's just if you sell within the 10-year period of the hold period, it triggers tax. Okay, so sale, you end up paying tax you wouldn't have had to pay at the end of 10 years if you stayed in the program. So if one was creating an opportunity, bad pun there, to buy rehab single family homes and sell them, well, could that work? The answer to that is yes, it could work. The rules allow for, again, this is a little bit in the weeds, but the rules allow for a fund to sell an investment within the 10-year period, so long as the fund does not return the dollars to the investors and in turn invests those funds within 12 months of the sale. That will count for purposes of the OZs. Put in other words, fund owns an asset, sells the asset, has $10 million. So long as that 10 million does not get distributed up to the investors, if the fund holds that 10 million and redeploys it into another OZ project within that zone or any OZ zone in the US within 12 months, that's not deemed to be a sale. Rather, it's deemed to be a carryover of the investment period and would enable those gains to continue to be used in the program. So to Chris's question, you could buy property, fix it, sell it, take those proceeds, buy another one, fix it, sell it, and keep doing that for a 10-year period. You just got to be a little bit careful to, to the point that was raised earlier, by Rob on, you got to make sure that you're complying and that your funds flow don't find their way back up to the investors, because that would be violative. And again, it wouldn't be deadly. It would just blow the treatment for the OZ. Okay.
The other part of that, Brad, is you could be deemed a trade or business, which makes it ordinary income, which is
great point.
Yeah, that's
right. And so you got to be very sensitive. Sorry, very sensitive to that point as well. Phil, last question. What advice do you have for developers on how best to forge an effective partnership with municipalities? What's kind of your secret sauce? What's the magic there?
I don't think it's a secret. I think it's pretty basic. I think you don't walk into a municipality and say, I want to build this building and this is how I'm going to build it. I think you sit down with the municipality and you say, what do you need in your community and where can we focus and what can we bring to the table? Specifically, we do multifamily. So we say, what kind of housing, where do you need it, and where can we kind of focus? That puts it in a very different perspective because now you're working in partnership with them. So we never dictate what we are going to do. We listen to what they want, and then we try and work within our parameters to meet those requirements. That's very basic advice. I don't think it's a secret, but there's shocking how many people don't do that.
I was going to say basic, but not always followed. So that's
Correct.
sage counsel there. Again, it is a little bit of kindergarten, see, spot, run. It's sending thank you notes and it's following up with people and being where you're supposed to be, but there's a lot that doesn't happen there. So I think you're spot on. Rob, I see your question. It's a little bit beyond the pale of today, but feel free to drop me an email and we can talk about it. It has to do with, again, this concept of not having to improve the property and buying or selling before there's a CO. It's called original use property, and how that relates to a separate rule, which is related parties, where the rules don't like, us selling to ourselves. And so there's restrictions and guardrails on how that happens. But Rob, happy to talk to you about that offline. Oscar, I think you are going to take us home and wrap us up, but I leave you with two really storied developers who have done really good stuff, in particular in Orange, in the Oranges. And on the compliance and investment advisory side, what Rob's group is doing, very relevant and very important. And most deals need what they have. They just can't find Rob. And so they're looking for him. There's a lot of transactions going on nationally. The Intel out of Novogradac, which is, kind of tracks this. There's 20 billion with a B of development that's gone on in the last 3 years in the OZ. That's just 3 years old. That's a miraculously high number, a spectacularly high number. And even if it's half right, 10 billion is a pretty crazy number. But 20 billion is what they're reporting. So again, remember Midnight Milky Ways and oatmeal cookies as well. Daryl, I think, are you leading us home or is it Oscar? I can't remember.
It's Oscar.
Oscar, excellent.
Phenomenal webinar. Wow. I'm looking here in the chat and someone's saying we definitely should have a follow-up webinar to continue this discussion. So we will definitely put that on the slate for our 2022 webinars. First of all, my name is Oscar Parham. I am the manager of strategic operations at the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority. And we at NJRI would like to tell all our participants, thank you for carving out some time today to spend some time to learn some additional information about how you can use opportunity zone fundings for your redevelopment projects in New Jersey. So thank you again. We want to also give a special thanks to our incredible speakers. I learned a lot. We're definitely going to ask you to come back and continue this conversation. If you attended the workshop and you had some additional questions that weren't answered, because I saw a lot of questions coming in via the chats, we will capture those questions, but also feel free, as Brad mentioned earlier, to reach out to our speakers and follow up with them if you've got some additional questions that they can assist you with going forward. So we welcome that. To give everyone a heads up, December 9th, we've got another impactful webinar that is coming around the corners in 29 days. It's titled Real Estate Trends, Aligning Your Development Strategies Around the New Norm. It's going to be a 2-hour webinar. We'll be sending out some additional information on how to register via our emails as well as our social media. But this webinar is really going to be impactful from the standpoint that we're going to take a few moments and have our experts share with you their insights that they've seen over the last year or so. And then, as I like to say, give you some go forward strategy going into 2022. So that's going to be another webinar. So look out for our emails, look out for our social media posts. Thank you once again. Thank you for the speakers. Always thank you to our president and CEO, Leslie A. Anderson, for her involvement and support for us to continue to do what we do at the Training Institute. So everyone have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you December 9th. Take care.